We want to underscore again that we're coming to Chicago peacefully, but whether we're given permits or not, we're coming.
Netflix blockbuster The Trial of the Chicago 7 has received 6 Oscar nominations. The film, which follows a group of anti-Vietnam War protesters charged with conspiracy and crossing state lines with intent to incite a riot at the 1968 Democratic National Convention, has also reignited a debate about filmmakers prioritizing compelling drama above historical facts. Aaron Sorkin, the movie's screenwriter and director, speaks to the Economist Asks podcast about the creative challenges of dramatizing one of the most notorious cases in America's history.
Aaron Sorkin, welcome to the Economist Asks.
It's good to be here.
This story was 14 years in the making. It ended up being more topical than you could probably have imagined for a lot of that time. Why were you so convinced that it had this enduring relevance?
You know, we thought the film was plenty relevant when we were making it last winter. We didn't need it to get more relevant, but it did come last May after the police killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor here. Protesters took to the streets, and they were met in a number of cities by riot clubs and tear gas again. Sometimes I'd watch CNN, their coverage of the protests, and think, you know, if you just degraded the color on this, it would look exactly like the footage we use from 1968.
And a courtroom drama also means you have transcripts, you have news footage, you have TV interviews from the period. To what degree is this detective work? And for someone like you who likes to base a lot of your drama, in fact, in events, but then piece them together from the truth of the story from these different perspectives. What's the balance there between creative license and kind of what it says in the documents?
The difference that you're talking about is the difference between a photograph and a painting. And this is a painting. It's the difference between journalism and art. And it's the difference between accuracy and truth. So, for example, one of the more harrowing moments in the trial and in the film is when Bobby Seale gets bound and gagged in the courtroom. The judge has just had enough of him, orders him to be dragged away by the U.S. Marshals, and in the judge's words, deal with him as he should be dealt with, which is taken directly from the transcript.
But this actually happened over several days, didn't it?
Yes. First, for anyone who doesn't know, let me explain. In the film, he's brought back in, he's bound and gagged. The judge gives him one more chance if you behave yourself, I'll take the gag off. Do I have your word that you'll behave yourself? He nods, he stares at the judge and nods, shakes his head back and forth, no. And so the judge says, fine, let's go ahead. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, as the prosecutor, asked to approach the bench and asked the judge to grant a mistrial in the case of Bobby Seale because the defendant has been bound and gagged in an American courtroom. And it's granted. In reality, it took 4 days. As you just pointed out, Bobby sat in the courtroom for 4 days, bound and gagged, before the judge separated him from the rest of the defendants and gave him his mistrial. So why did I do what I did? Because I felt that we had landed the truth of the moment. The most harrowing part, this happened. Bound, gagged, shackled, beaten, the whole thing. And that to leave Bobby there and continue the story for 4 more days, paying attention to other things, it would start to feel like it wasn't that big a deal that Bobby was bound and gagged, that life goes on. With him sitting there bound and gagged, he would almost seem like a sight gag in a way. I felt, okay, journalistic accuracy, he would have to be there for 4 days. Artistic truth, you can check the box and be done with that, because if you don't, you're going to start to dim that truth a little bit. You're going to start to normalize the fact that he's doing it.
So it sounds like you think the journalistic accuracy and an artistic truth can be in conflict.
Sometimes, and sometimes not. In other words, if you can be journalistically accurate and land that truth too, if you're writing, if you're a reporter covering that trial, there is a way to write about the fact that Bobby Seale has been bound and gagged in this courtroom for 4 days in a way that is equal to the importance of that, because you're describing it. I can't do that. I have to dramatize the whole thing. And the fact is, if you gave me some time, I'm sure I could think of a way to land the impact of the journalistically true version too. But I made the decision to go this way.
This is a really interesting area when we tease apart how much we expect historical drama, or particularly recently rooted historical drama. We seem to be a bit more kind of liberal about it when it goes back a few centuries. Let me give you an example and tell me what you think. And that's where Eddie Redmayne, as Tom Hayden reads the list of Vietnam casualties. And of course, it's been pointed out that this happened earlier in the trial. It was David Dallinger, not the Tom Hayden character. And it did include Vietnamese names as well as American ones. Now, in another context, one might say changing this around, missing out the competence, as it turned out, in this conflict on which this drama turns, might be called fake news. What's the difference?
Okay, here it is. We have, for the whole film, one of the stories we've been telling is Tom Hayden versus Abby Hoffman, right? Kind of a reflection of today's Democratic Party, the tension between the left and the further left, people who want incremental change, compromise, and people who are tired of incremental change and want revolution. Tom's thing was, can we please just behave ourselves while we're in this courtroom so we can be found not guilty, get back out on the streets and continue trying to end the Vietnam War? Whereas Abby, along with Jerry, they felt that their job every day in the courtroom was to demonstrate to the judge that they have no respect for these proceedings at all. That this is the demonstration right now in the courtroom. This is the revolution right now. And Abby, throughout the film, is needling Tom, questioning his courage and bravery. So our final moment, in the starkest possible terms, the judge says to Hayden, if you make your final remark brief and respectful and without any political content, I will show mercy on you before the sentencing. We even skip over the guilty or not guilty part because we know they've already lost. So the triumphant moment is going to be Hayden not being brief, not being respectful, and having as much political content as you can imagine, through the simple act of, instead of giving a political speech, reading 4,794 names out loud into the trial transcript. Okay, that was the truth that I wanted to land, that Hayden was in fact incredibly courageous, and that at the witching hour, at the moment of truth, he was what Abby said he was on the stand, a badass of an American patriot. Have him also reading names of North Vietnamese soldiers. If you do it earlier in the trial, if you have Dallinger do it, none of that much more important truth lands. You've done a journalistically accurate version of the trial of the Chicago 7, which is basically dramatizing a Wikipedia page. It's just not what I wanted to do with the story. So everyone has their own inner compass. There are things I wouldn't dream of changing for any reason. And there are things I have no problem working with as a dramatist without feeling like I'm perverting history at all.
It's great to talk to you, Aaron Sorkin. Thank you for joining us.
You bet. Good talking to you.
You can listen to the full interview in our podcast, The Economist Asks. Every week, we talk to a high-profile figure. Click the link opposite to find this episode, and thanks for watching.